Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I am your host, Katie Richardson. Super excited to be here because we have an amazing, exceptional, absolutely incredible guest today. Don't start talking yet because I'm going to introduce you. First of all, his name is George Bryant. He is somebody that I met at an event and he was like, "Oh, I know who you are. I've been stalking you online," just to give you a little sense of who this man is. We've actually been talking for 50 minutes and then I just hit record on this podcast. George Bryant will help you see the truth. He's going to help you see what is getting in the way of your business, why your marketing's not working, why it's crap, why it is not connecting with your clients, why you feel frustrated with your email sequence. Maybe you're not even using your email list. He's going to show you how to change all of that in a way where you are making a real connection with your clients. And before you start talking, George, people just need to know a little bit of background on you. This is a man who has been deployed in Afghanistan and Somalia. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Active duty Marine. This is a man who has experienced the worst of humanity and has come out and risen above all of that and took the skill set that he has developed in his life and brought it to business and marketing. He's a number one best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. He's built amazing businesses. He helps people create marketing machines that are real and that work. Welcome to the show, George Bryant.
Welcome to the show. I'm stoked to be here. And you were on the shore since you're like 100 yards from the beach.
I'm on the shore. Welcome to the shore. George, let's start with, could you share with people the story or an experience that has really formed and shaped how you see the world and who you are today?
Oh, I sure can. What a good question.
Thanks.
And by the way, for everybody listening, we should have hit record like 50 minutes ago, but we're not there yet. But we both shared some tears and some laughs. And so we have some deep rooted connection happening that we'll have to let you in on another podcast. But yeah, oh my God, there's so many ways to go with that answer. I'm going to go with the one that I've never given before, because it's really easy to go to the trauma ones. It's really easy to talk about combat and death and almost losing my legs and my traumatic brain injuries, but I will go the other way and say that I will say number one experience that shaped my life and formed how I see the world was the birth of my son. And, for 35 years of my life, I felt like a monster. I felt like a killing machine, a disconnected kind of trauma created machine. And I was rewarded for it for a lot of my life. And I went through life, I went through my career, and like I'm looking at my wall and I have a wall full of medals and awards and things like that I leave up for context because it's something I'm proud of. But if I was to ever go back, I would never make those choices again. I would never live that life again. I would never do all of that. But when I got out of the Marine Corps after 13 years and I went from Marine Corps to entrepreneur, it was really easy to succeed as an entrepreneur because outworking everybody was the only option. Like I was like, you guys work 8 hours. I was like, I'm used to not sleeping. Like, let's go. Right. And it was like this suffrage and this thing, but I didn't realize that when I brought that energy and that paradigm into my business, that it was also going to negatively affect those around me because it carried this cloud of disconnection, because it was me being transactional by nature and doing things because I was supposed to do them. It was all for some gain rather than a transformation. And so I operated that to a very successful level. And a lot of people don't know that when I became a New York Times bestseller, launched number one app in the world, that they were some of the darkest times of my life. And what you saw online was not what was happening behind the scenes. I was addicted to opiates. I was in and out of the psychiatric ward. I was actively bulimic for 15 years while being a paleo food blogger and telling people to love their bodies. Like I was hiding in plain sight. And there were all these threads that were pulling at me, but it wasn't as uncomfortable as anything I'd ever been through. So it was just easy to ignore, to check the box and to go. And the reason I do marketing the way that I do now is because I got rewarded for doing it for all the wrong ways in the beginning, and it destroyed me. And so all of this happened, and I built this multi-million-dollar business, blah, 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 blah. And I'll never forget, my wife was 8 months pregnant and we were about 3 weeks away from bankruptcy because I self-sabotaged that whole business into the ground. I couldn't do it anymore. Millions of followers, website views, and I just neglected it. I was losing 40, 50 grand a month. And I'll never forget the birth of my son because I've never felt transformation happen in an instant. And when my son was born, I held him and everything changed. And I went from monster to dad. I went from trauma to healing. I went from lost to purpose. And I realized that that thing, that his birth was so greater than me. It was such a big pattern interrupt that blew the lid off my belief system of like, I have to be this way, or I have to be broken, or there's no hope for me. Like I used to run around people and tell people, Katie, that I'm just damaged. I don't have feelings and I never will. There's too much to come back from. It won't come back. Like that was my story. That was my belief that I was running around with. And the birth of that little boy was magical. And then it changed everything for me because I went back to myself as an infant, and I've used my child, my son, and raising him as a way to reparent myself through my child wounds and through my traumas and to create different experiences. And so, to be really frank, the single most transformative experience in my life was the birth of my son. And it gave me purpose and meaning to connect with a part of me that I knew was always there, but I was afraid to feel, and then take that, embody that, and then infuse it into everything that I do so that it gives him something to be proud of when I'm no longer here.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense knowing you now. I can only imagine going through all the traumatic war experiences that you went to, what a human would have to do, right? To shut off your feelings and emotions and to have that opened up again with the birth of your son. In a sense, not only was he born that day, but
I was.
The next version of George was born.
Yeah. And I can literally like go back and pinpoint that day, and I could give you chapter milestones from that day to everything, from the therapy session that broke through to the EMDR, to the silent retreat, to the breath work, to the plant medicine, to my success, to my career change. Like that was probably the single biggest catalyst in my life outside of some stuff that happened in the military. And I am forever grateful for it.
Yeah. Something that I think a lot of people miss when they get into business is they very much come from their head, right? And like you, they move into that hustle, grind mentality. I'm going to outwork everybody. And in doing that, they kind of have to shut off their feelings. And what a gift to have that reopened for you at the birth of your son. And I can only imagine what was required on the other side of that to begin to understand how to navigate your feelings, right? Hello.
Yep. Strap in that seatbelt and tighten it down, which is really funny. You know, you said in the intro, you know, helping you figure out why your marketing isn't working, why your emails aren't working, why you're connecting with your customers. And, you know, we know that in entrepreneurship, we have an unlimited task list that will never be done. We have an unlimited disconnection machine. And we quote unquote use work and social and marketing and business to distract ourselves or numb out from what's there. And that's how I was as an entrepreneur, because no matter what, when I felt like crap, there was always work to be done. So it's like, oh, feeling, don't want to feel it, go work, go disconnect, go thrive. And then I was rewarded for it, right? Because in this quote unquote hustle culture, it's like the more you hustle and disconnect from yourself and suffer, the more you're monetarily rewarded due to the complacency of the nature of the paradigm that exists in business. And one therapist broke it for me. Just one. This woman, I saw her for one appointment, and in 5 minutes, she changed my entire life, because we were in there and I was doing the whole thing, right? I do this and I do this and I work so hard and I run all these businesses and blah, 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 blah. And I looked her dead in the eye, Katie, and I said, and I can't feel. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm numb. And she looked me dead in the eye and she's like, numb is a feeling. And it broke me, Katie. It broke me. Like 3 weeks, I didn't do anything. I cried. I sat. I didn't feel anything of like excitement. I just sat with everything. And that one simple statement changed my entire paradigm around feelings and work and life. And it was one of the most profound coaching moments of my entire life. In 5 minutes, that woman literally broke open probably a 20-year belief system that I can't feel, that I'm numb, that I just have to work and hustle and hustle and hustle. And unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, nothing ever went back. So what ended up happening is that broke me to a point where I lost my quote unquote drive. I didn't want to work anymore.
Wow.
I didn't want to do anything because I was no longer running or hiding or compensating. And I knew that numb was a feeling. So there was nothing to distract myself from anymore. And so that feeling of insecurity, or I'm not good enough and I'm going to go show everybody, because I don't feel anything, just got eroded away in a moment's notice. And it probably took 9 to 10 months for me to unravel where all my come froms, my drive to work out, my drive to succeed, my drive to speak was all roped in insecurity, to then recondition something to a place of like, for the first time in my life, saying, who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to do? Like, what is this? And it took about 9 or 10 months before one day I woke up and I was like, I just want to do this today, and just do this today, and just do a podcast today, and just do a coaching call today. And it was one of the most profound moments. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know there's people listening who may potentially be caught in that hustle, grind mentality, and might even be saying things similar to you. I don't feel.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that you sharing that really personal, deep, profound moment for you, that others can kind of experience their own doorway opening to a new version of themselves, right? A way to feel and to connect and to be human. Yeah. Now you have taken this experience and you've really magnified it and brought it to your business. And I want to talk about that, but there's actually an experience that I've heard you share that I kind of want to jump into really quick. You alluded to it a little bit. You had built this business with a #1 New York Times bestselling book. You built a business and a following. You had something absolutely incredible happening, and you walked away from it all, George. Like you could see that it wasn't fulfilling you, right? Yeah. Even though it was working for people, it was connecting with them. You could see that in a sense you were living a lie, and that you weren't being honest and truthful. And you made the decision to disappear for 3+ years, right? Yeah. Walk us through that, because there might be somebody who's listening right now who's might be in a similar place. Like, I hate my business. I don't even want to ever walk into my office again. How did you even begin to navigate telling the truth in that moment and starting to make decisions?
Yeah, that is an incredible question. And I just want to be integrous. My book was a #4 New York Times bestseller. My app hit #1 in the world, just so I can be in integrity.
Love it. Love it.
And there's a story for the next podcast on how I walked out of my own book celebration party because I was mad it was only #4.
Wow.
We'll leave that one for a different one. That's a different.
Okay.
That's
we'll
a different
be back.
Session, Katie. So what had really happened was I had this belief that I could build this business and that business would be my identity. And so I very much did the social media thing to where this is who I am. And I built this identity that was all consuming to where I wasn't different than the business. I was all of the business, but how I was showing up online was permeating into my life. I was addicted to my phone. I was on Instagram every day. I mean, had hundreds of thousands of followers, messages every single day. But I never really was doing it to connect. I was doing it to disconnect. And the most beautiful thing happened. I had a business that was built around helping people. And I know in my heart, like my whole life growing up like I did, and physical abuse and sexual abuse and social services and emancipations and homelessness and all this stuff, that I really loved people. But I had so much trauma that I never knew how to love people, because everything was about survival and manipulation and coercion. So the reason I'm so good at speaking is because as a kid, I would have to speak and listen to see when I was going to get hit, or if I was going to get food, or figure out how to get to stay in somebody's basement, or talk to a teacher about letting me, like, it was all a survival tactic born out of trauma. And so what ended up happening in this business is there was one critical point in the business, one, where I became honest for the first time. And so I'd run this business for 3-4 years, blew up to the top of the charts in paleo, wrote the book, everything. But I'd never told everybody why I started paleo, ever. Wow. I just started it one day. And my wife, incredible, looked at me one day before I walked on stage and she said, "Are you really going to go give a keynote and lie again?"
Wow.
We were standing in Austin, Texas, right outside the Bryant Convention Center, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And talk about another defining moment. And I was going up to give a talk on how you can use food. I remember this like it was yesterday, how you can use food to create breakthrough results in your life because you practice 3 times a day. So it was like, think about habits and psychology and momentum and, things like that. And I was going to give the talk like I had it all figured out. And so instead, I walked up on stage and I said, "I've been lying to all of you because none of you even know why I'm standing here. I'm not paleo because I wanted to be paleo. I'm paleo because I am bulimic, and I even threw up this morning. And I've been struggling for years and wanted to hold myself accountable. And I've been working on healing it that stemmed from my sexual abuse. So I am sorry. And I needed you to know the truth before I started giving this talk. And I was petrified. I thought everybody was going to leave. I was going to get ousted. And the most incredible thing happened. People that were standing up sat down. People that were on their phones put them away. People that were not engaged came and engaged, and people that I thought would judge me looked at me with tears in their eyes and showed me so much love. And I gave this whole keynote. And that was the moment that this belief system or wall or paradigm that I had built cracked open. And every day from that point forward that I started showing up disconnected and transactional, the responses that I would get would break me open even more. And it started to divide this wedge. And it started to create cognitive dissonance because I could no longer go show up because every time I did it hurt worse because I was getting so much love back because I opened something up in my truth. And so eventually the wedge just got greater and greater and greater. And then I just ignored the business. So I just stopped. I stopped showing up online. I stopped doing everything. I was still paying my team and my staff, but I was losing like 30 to 40 grand a month. And I got to that day where my wife was 8 months pregnant and we were 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. And I was in a room with my peers. And everyone's like checking in. And if I name drop this room, you'd be like, what the fuck? Excuse me, what the heck? And then I was like, yeah. And everyone's like, I'm happy it's here. I'm like, I'm miserable. I'm depressed. I don't want to be here anymore. Blah, blah, blah. I left that event. I went and did a couple days in silence. I just went and did a stillness silence thing because I was afraid of my feelings. And in that, I kept getting this, I can't live like this anymore. This is designing me to die. Like, this is not it. Like I'm felt trapped in my own world. Like I was in prison in my own world. And I had this one thought, and the thought was, call Josh, give him the company. It came in a moment. I called Lindsay. I called some people. They're like, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. And Katie, I can go back to that moment. And I can tell you, for the first time in my entire life, that was the first time I'd ever truly done something for myself based on how I felt, regardless of what the world around me said. I flew home. I called Josh. We had one conversation. I put him on a call with my team. And within 24 hours, the entire corporation was transferred. Social media, bank accounts, bylaws, taxes, everything transferred. And I was out.
Wow.
And I deleted social media and I was done. And then I disappeared. And I just went offline and I went into the real world and I started connecting with my family and connecting with those people in the room and building a new story to where nobody knew I existed. It wasn't about me, what I could show you on social media. It was about me caring about you and let me help you get results. And nobody needs to know, Katie. Nobody needs to know. I just want to help you. And through that, I started to rewrite my own story of using my gifts and my talents to help other people without having to have all the credit or put a shadow over everybody else. And then things started to happen. Companies started to win. And if I said the Rolodex of these people, you'd be like, oh my God, that was you. Yep. But it doesn't matter because it was us and I don't need it. I don't need the ego. I don't need the validation. And it was the first time that I got to give myself to the world where I had zero chance of getting anything back, which allowed me to step into my truth of why I do and how I do this. And then that kind of snowballed from there. And then we hit a point about 2.5 years later where my wife's like, hey, you know, you're kind of annoying because you talk a lot and we can't really handle it anymore. Can you please kind of go back on social media and help some people because there's really shitty people doing it really bad and you can help people do it so much better. And you've like done your time and you've healed, but like, can you go back? And that was one of the catalysts. And I came back out of nowhere and started a Facebook group. And still to this day, I've not invested any time or money into trying to grow my accounts or have followers or do anything. I'm just like, my only job is to connect one-on-one with every single person who shows up in my life. And that's how I've built my successful career. And so it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
The hardest thing I've ever done because it challenged the fabric of the identity that I thought was me.
Yeah.
Rather than being who I authentically am and being honest about it. And so the way that I look at this is that I've had enough life experience to see that like life can end in a moment, like just in a moment. And I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've been a part of it. I've done it. And so I think that anything that we're doing where we knowingly don't want to do it and we're not making a choice to try to have something different, as we're just choosing a slow death. And for me, I just can't do that. And so, yeah, you might be in a job that you don't like. You might be in a career that you don't like. You might be in a business that you don't love anymore. But here's one thing that I'll tell you. You're in the fucking driver's seat. So turn the thing. Just turn it, right? Or hit the brakes and brake check everybody, or hit the gas and speed up. But no one's coming to save us. Like, no one's coming to do it for us. No one's going to run the race. No one's going to lace the shoes. And quite frankly, what I've learned is that my feelings are amazing, but if I give them too much time and attention, they prevent me from doing the things that matter. So instead, I give them a cup of coffee and I tell them to tighten their seatbelt and let's go do something different. And it really, really is about momentum and consistency, because consistency is the thing that changes everything. And it's like, if we go walk 10 minutes a day for the next 30 days, that's 300 minutes of walking that we wouldn't have got done. But if we try to walk 300 minutes today, we'll lose. It won't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what we have to start being very aware of is like, okay, cool. I hate my business. Okay, well, that's kind of ambiguous and it's kind of an excuse. It's bullshit. Tell me what you don't like. What do you hate? Why don't you like going to the office? And you're like, well, I don't like how this feels. I'm like, okay, well, what would make it feel better? Well, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, well, then don't do it. And here's what I've come to understand is that the biggest challenge for humanity, for me, like my own humanity, is that I think I'm way smarter than I am, but I'm a biological mammal that is really simple. And when I dumb it down to this is really, really simple, I'm in a situation that I don't like. There's only one person that can change it. And if I wait any longer, I'm choosing to stay in a situation that I don't like. So what's one thing I could do today? And you just take a step in the direction. But I watched myself for 4 years think that I was going to have the perfect plan, or that it was going to come to fruition, or somebody was going to give me a permission slip to go after what I wanted. Or somebody was going to say, hey, George, we see you're unhappy, so we fixed it all for you. Here's $10 million. Or, hey, George, we know you don't like running your business and running your team. So here, we just hired this person for free. They're going to run your team for you. You can sit on your couch and collect the money. Like, shut up. Come on. Right? Like, and the biggest challenge for me is that the reason I hadn't changed is because I was too busy lying to myself.
Yeah.
To actually make a choice rather than being in integrity with myself. Hey, I don't like this. Or, hey, I'm scared. Or, hey, I don't know why this isn't working. Because that current state is what gives us all the information required to make a change. But the thing about this, and the simple creature, right? 3 colors of crayon in my box: black, white, and pink. That's it. Those are the only colors in my box. I don't get more complicated than that. But when you think about it, if you open your iPhone right now and you go and open Google Maps or Apple Maps and you tell me you want to get to Montana, because that's where I live. I want you to try to type Montana in, the destination. Don't put a starting point and hit go and see what happens.
Right.
It doesn't. It yells at you. I can't go. I don't know how to get you there. I can't bump. But yeah, that's what most humans and entrepreneurs do.
Yes.
Is we spend time disconnecting in the fantasy of where we want to go, because it allows us to remove ourselves from where we are. And then we convince ourselves that if we have a general idea of where we want to go, then we can somehow get there, even though we have no idea what direction it's in, because we're refusing to look at where we are today.
George Bryant, like, you and I get each other.
Oh, we totally get each other.
So incredible. Oh my word. I could dive into all of these things. I mean, the thing that George is sharing with us is the power of telling the truth, your truth. That moment of realizing your truth, the truth that you've been running from, that you've been numbing from, that you've been trying to hide from, that you've been shoving down and pretending like you don't feel like that's not a big deal. Like that moment when you start to really see it, and you start to even entertain the idea of what would happen if I started taking action on this. It is terrifying. It's terrifying, right? Our mind makes up every catastrophic possibility, and we see that horrifying movie, and it's terrifying. We want to turn and run from it. Everybody's experienced that. Very few people actually choose to move forward anyway, and you did. Tell us some of the things that you felt. What did it feel like on the other side? Like, yes, you turned over your bank accounts and you sold the business for pennies to somebody else. What did that?
I gave it.
You gave it away. Oh my word. Okay, love it.
I didn't get a dollar.
Not even a dollar. I love it. What did that feel? Because that moment beforehand is absolutely terrifying. What did it feel like on the other side of that?
What a good question. And let me tell everybody why I didn't sell it. I didn't sell it because I felt it was unfair to monetize my addiction.
Wow. Integrity right
And
there.
so what it felt like to me is that if I sold it, which I could have for a copious amount of money,
Yeah.
that I would be rewarding myself for behaviors that I don't want in my life. And I couldn't have that evidence in my life.
Wow.
And so it was a way to hold myself accountable. So I'm going to go ahead and just collapse this whole thing for everybody.
Yeah.
It was petrifying before. It was petrifying after too. And the only thing that changed was my choice and the actions I took. The feeling never changed. It took almost 2.5 years for me to feel like it was the right decision.
Wow.
And I could sit here and tell you all day that, like, yeah, that day it felt freeing. It felt extremely freeing and liberating for about 10 minutes. And
Wow.
then the dopamine was gone and the fear was greater.
Wow.
Because now I didn't have anything to rely on. I didn't have the 6 years I poured into this. I didn't have the audience. I didn't have anything. Katie, all I had was me. And so Parkinson's Law is you fill whatever container you create. And so in that moment, when I eliminated every single way in which I had distracted myself, no social media, none. And I mean none. Apps off my phone, deleted, no accounts, gave them away. All I was left with was me, myself, and me. And then when I started to pay attention, I realized that everything I wanted in life was directly in front of me. I was just choosing not to see it. Wow. Because now I couldn't send you a DM on Instagram, Katie. I had to see you at the event and take time to have a conversation with you. When we got to see each other, you can say, hey, George, I saw that you've been up to this and I saw you do this. And I'm like, you can't see shit. So when we connect, it's like, what have you been up to? And it's a real, this is what I've been up to. This is what I'm going on. And it reopened my eyes to what humanity was. But the thing that never changed was the feeling. To this day, on February 23rd of 2022, I am more scared of my future and my potential than I was the day I walked away from that business. And I love every ounce of it. There's not one champion in this world that you will find that isn't afraid of competing at the highest level, that isn't being afraid of being held accountable to their potential, that isn't afraid of some of the things that are required, because we have two parts of ourselves. We have the part of ourselves that we currently are, and we have the part of ourselves that we know we're capable of. And that's the world that we live in, and you have to learn to dance with it. And so it was extremely liberating, but I would say the one throughput through all of it, it was empowering.
Yeah.
It was empowering. And it made things that I'd been through in my life feel easy. It made combat feel easy. It made war feel easy. It made my childhood feel easy, which is weird because it was just this like thing that I could walk away from. And like, it wasn't really me, but I had so much wrapped up into that identity to now where I think my favorite thing about me now is like, I love what I do. I'll do it till the day that I die, but I am not what I do. I am not what I do. I am who I am, and I use what I do as a tool to help other people. But now that I have that clear identity, it's just very empowering. Like I can make a pivot. I can launch a coaching program. I can close it. I can launch a podcast. I can delete it. I can do whatever I want, because when I remove the results that were created, I give myself an integrous look of who I am and the inputs that I made to create that result. I'm not the result. I am the man who made inputs and choices to create that result. And the result is not me. It's a byproduct of how I play every day. And that's fucking empowering.
Hello. Mic drop. That was beautiful.
I've been really good.
Amazing.
I've only sworn 3 times today. That's really good for me.
Hey, I can handle it. So can they. Thank you so much. I really feel like too often people plow past experiences and stories like that and don't really take the time to really dissect what's going on and tell the truth. Like you said, I was being interviewed on a podcast once, and at the end, the guy said, what's one thing people need to do right now today? And I paused for a moment and I said, you need to start telling the truth.
Yeah.
And he started talking over me, George.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's
he couldn't handle it.
Nope.
Anyways, turns out later I got on the phone with him and he was like, yeah, my life's on fire and burning and rolling down a hill. Help me.
Well, and to even give validity to that, when we started the call, I was like, hey, I need to tell you something before we record today, because I need to be in integrity with what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And my life is amazing. I'm happier than I've ever been. But I was like, hey, one of two things is about to happen with Miss Katie. Miss Katie's going to be like, this dude needs to be 5150 in a straight jacket and I'm out. Or Miss Katie is going to be the amazing Miss Katie and be like, thank you so much for sharing, and connect on a different level and create a moment, a co-created moment of truth, so that we can move forward. And it actually did. I even got a couple tears out of her a couple minutes later for a different reason, but that is it. And so I'm going to, everybody listening, entrepreneurial, business wise, I'm going to give you a lesson in this right now, because
go for it. When
people come to me and they're like, my emails don't work. My team's not responding. The meeting didn't have a desirable effect. My marketing is falling flat. And I was like, cool, go read it. And I want you to ask yourself one question. Is that the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Because if it's anything less, it's manipulation. If it's anything less, it's manipulation. You want to know how I get 90% open rates? I'm honest. You don't know how I get marketing to convert? I tell the truth. I don't know how I get $1 million companies to 10x in 90 days. We get really raw and honest. Because there's one thing that every human being needs to move forward with anybody, and it's safety. And when was the last time that you felt safe when somebody was being dishonest with you? When was the last time you were in a conversation, you asked somebody a question, they gave you an answer, but their answer didn't match their body language or face? I want you to think about that moment. Did you lean in deeper and connect further, or did you start to put walls up and move back? Right? When you go to say good morning to somebody and you make eye contact and you make an effort and they don't say it back, what does it do to you? How does it make you feel? How does it change the way that you show up? So when you go and send an email to somebody who added something to their cart, and then 20 minutes later you say, hey, you forgot something, I want you to ask yourself if that's the truth. Did they really forget? Or did you not do something to meet a need or requirement that would make them buy your product? See, people try to get like 6% recovery rates with carts. They're like, hey, you forgot something, let me discount my product. And I'm like, you do realize that 20 minutes ago, they added it to their cart and they were ready to pay full price. Now they forgot something. You're telling them they can get a discount. And the only thing you did was eroded every ounce of credibility and trust that you have, because now they're going to say, well, why didn't I just buy it for 20% off in the first place?
Yeah.
Because it's built on a lie. I have a company specifically, and I can't say their name because they just got exited for a copious amount of money in the billions. And we recovered 58% of abandoned carts in 1 month. 58%.
Sheesh.
It added almost $10 million to the bottom line.
Oh my word.
You want to know what my first email said, Katie?
What?
I won't insult your intelligence, was the subject. And then the first email said, I'm not stupid and neither of you. You didn't forget anything. I failed to meet the mark. So I know you were interested in it.
So good.
But for whatever reason, it got to your cart and came out. And I can only imagine it's because we didn't do a good enough job coordinating, or it might not be something you need. And then it went on for 3 more emails. 56% recovered.
Wow.
And so when we think about this, we have to realize that integrity is the only thing that we have. Connection is the only thing that we have. And it's like, okay, cool. I want all my emails to be opened. Well, cool. When was the last time you told somebody why it was important for you and them, why they opened them all? You just have an expectation that when you put words on a piece of paper that somebody's going to make it a priority on the top of their list. How about reinventing yourself in that really uncomfortable place? And you're like, hey, by the way, I love my emails and I pour a lot of time in them. They are here to support you, but they also help me. And it would mean the world to me if they added value, but you also opened everyone.
Wow.
But no, we can't say that because we're marketers and we're entrepreneurs and we don't want to be connected to people at that level. I'm like, oh, you don't want to connect with the people who are giving you the credit card that are paying your bills and keeping your staff employed. And then you want to wonder why they're not giving you any more because you won't connect with them. That's what you want.
George, thank you for walking through this and demonstrating what it looks like. I feel like authenticity and vulnerability has become this buzzword and people don't actually know what it means to truly be honest and truthful. And what you're describing is very different. It's different than the crying Facebook Live, like my life's a mess. where they're still needy and desperate and looking for the attention. And what you're demonstrating and illustrating begins with you, right? This true honesty within yourself, and then having the courage and being so bold to then share that personal truth with the people who are on your email list. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so crazy to me because like, I think the way that I collapse this paradigm is like, one of the things I ask myself is, what would this look like in real life? That's what I ask myself. So if you think about your emails, right? And you take those into account and then you turn your business into a brick and mortar. Could you imagine saying each email separately to somebody at different points of their trip in the store in a conversation? And most of the time people look at me and they say, I'm nuts. And I'm like, yeah, but why is that nuts? Because that's what we're doing without a wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, wait, hold on. And I was like, yeah. Can you imagine if somebody came into your store and bought a product and checked out with your product, completed the purchase, you handed them a receipt, and then they got to the door and you jumped in front of me. You're like, stop. I know you just bought what you needed, but I'll give you 2 for half the price. And they're like, Katie's like, no, George, no, like I only needed 1. You're like, all right, fine. So then you walk out to your car and I chase you down. And I'm like, wait, Katie, wait. How about I give you 4 for 90% off? And in that moment, you'd get arrested for assault.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But when I say that, it sounds so silly. But yet we have convinced ourselves that that's how human beings want to be treated online. And then we get upset that it's hard to grow and scale our business with a ton of transactional disconnected relationships. And so we convince ourselves that we have to find more. But here's a news flash. There's not an unlimited pool of customers. So you're always going to hit a point to where the word of mouth, which by the way, accounts for 86% of marketing, creates irreparable damage to where you don't have a business anymore because everybody who helped you build it got disrespected and taken advantage of, and there's no one left to pay your bills. And so at the end of the day, you can have the best product in the world, you can have the best service in the world, but if people don't have the best experience, it doesn't matter.
George, absolutely incredible. Thank you for showing up so real, so raw, so honest, so authentic in the real sense, and illustrating to us what it looks like to truly connect with your customers and to give them an experience that makes that heartfelt connection person to person. Yeah. It's something that really early on in business, it bothered me that business felt so cold and transactional. Yeah. And I threw that out the window 15, 18 years ago. And I was like, yeah, that's not working for me. Hi, my name's Katie. I'm a mother of 4. Yes. I make things.
Yes. Hence why you're so successful and such a human.
And honestly, like what you're sharing with people, it's already inside of them. Yeah. If they can let go of the many layers that they've been taught and just really tap into what it means to be a human and connect with another human. Yeah. And when you can look at your business in that way, my business is products and services that help people who are the people that are in pain that I can help. When you look at your business in that way, you don't need a script for selling. You're not selling, you're solving problems.
Nope. And here's the thing I'll say. If you try to sell a product, somebody will pay $100 for it. If you sell the relationship, they'll pay 10 grand for it. And that's everything okay with that.
Wow.
People want to connect.
It's true.
What they want. You can go to a Globo gym and pay $19 a month, but other people will go to Equinox, pay $300 a month plus $1,000 for a personal trainer because they feel safe, seen, heard, and respected.
Interruption.
That's it. The trainers are doing the same thing. Same protocol, same workout, same movements. What they're paying for is how they feel.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Mm-hmm. George, I would love to have you back on the show again because I know we're just scratching the surface.
I have so much more to share. So we can just,
I know now
because we'll share it all in the next episode.
Yes.
And we'll schedule more time and we won't talk for 50 minutes before. We'll just record.
Okay. And in the meantime, go listen to George's podcast. It's called The Mind of George Show. Go follow him on Instagram. It's George Bryant. We'll have links in the show notes for you. George Bryant, thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. And for everybody who's listening, this is what's working now.